Today I'm going to try to draw this arched gateway in Tallinn, Estonia. This one is all about the perspective and the texture, and I really take my time working those things out. Therefore, you're going to be watching this at 1.5 times speed. Especially for this beginning bit, I do a lot of exploring around the paper. I'm using pretty light marks, so I apologize in advance if you can't see much for now. And most of them are these sort of casual dots here and there as I get started, which helps me get a sense of where and how I'll draw certain things without dedicating myself to those spots. So bear with me, things will begin to emerge. I just have to work my way up to them. While I get there, I want to talk about a question I seem to get asked over and over again by who I would assume to be well-meaning people that, regardless of the topic, I've always had a hard time answering. People ask this question in many ways, but the root of it is always the same. So I'll try to say it as straightforwardly as possible. The question is basically, so what's the point? And obviously nobody's actually saying it like that, which is why I've gone through so much trouble qualifying it and mincing my words. I know that no one has meant it in such a blatant or rude way, but that is what lives at the core of the question. And right now you're probably thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. So let me get a little bit more specific. For example, 2 years ago, I started a photography newsletter. If you don't know, I'm a photographer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I've said it before. You can watch the other videos if you'd like to learn about that. Anyway, I want this series to kind of live outside of my photography stuff, so I won't go into too much detail. But basically, it's a weekly newsletter that has some of my photos from the previous week. If you're interested in that, you can find it in the description, but that's all I'll say about it for now. Anyway, so when I started it, I had dozens of people ask me, like, what I was building up to with it. Was I going to eventually charge people for it? Was it to get more eyes on my photos so that I could convert people to Patreon or whatever? Honestly, I started it because I recognized that I wasn't enjoying photography as much as I used to, and part of that came from just not taking as many pictures anymore. I reached a point where I would make things as these hyper-specific sets or projects, and I lost some of the joy of photography more broadly. So on some level, sure, this could be a business move, I guess, but the point was to pursue something that I guess in some ways was a challenge of consistency, but mainly because I wanted to love photography again. And I felt that by making it this specific weekly thing, by sharing it out to the world, I could achieve that. Thankfully, that has been the result. And honestly, I keep doing it so that I keep loving photography. I'm not making money from it. I could stop since I technically achieved my goal, if you can even call it that. But why? I'm enjoying myself, and that was the point all along. If I step back a little further and get a little closer to the point I'm trying to make, a year before I started that project, my wife and I decided to go to Spain for the express purpose of improving our Spanish. We enrolled in a 6-month course, which was 3 hours every day, Monday through Friday. And if you're following the concept that I'm kind of laying out, you could probably guess that it wasn't because we wanted to become teachers or start a Spanish-speaking podcast or to get a job that required a second language. It was because we wanted to speak Spanish with our friends and with the locals and a few of the places in which we really enjoyed being, and that was it. But without fail, anytime we would talk about it, these same questions that ultimately amount to, so what's the point, would crop up. The quippiest answer that I think a lot of people say, but I don't think ever gets to the heart of it, is why not? And that's fine. I've said it before, but it's kind of just a period to the conversation, and it feels a little hollow to me. I'm not making these big life decisions, big for me at least, because I couldn't think of anything better to do. Like, that's kind of a bad answer. Just because I don't have some ulterior business move hiding around the corner doesn't mean that it's purposeless. It's just that my real answer doesn't seem to satisfy people the way that it satisfies me, which I think will make the most sense within the context of my final example, which is, you guessed it, and to bring it all around, this YouTube channel. I'm sure you can imagine the questions I've received about starting this. Oh, I didn't know you cared about drawing. Why do you want to do that? Oh, are you going to teach people how to draw? Because I think a lot of people would watch that. Oh, are you going to sell your drawings with your photos? Ooh, or you could draw your photos and then, blah, 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 blah. All of that comes from people who are reasonably close to me, who all obviously mean well, but they keep missing the point. And I don't know, I find that really strange. The answer to the core question, so what's the point, is that I want to. I want to. And that doesn't satisfy pretty much anyone. There are a few people who understand, but it's like 1 in 100. To me, I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to die someday, and it might be next week, so I better do the stuff that intrigues me. But I don't know, maybe from the outside, that's harder to accept. The answer a lot of people like to give to their own unique endeavors, the why not, is ironically the inverse of because I want to. And I'd bet that the people who answer with the former actually mean the latter. And maybe they just don't want to get into a whole conversation about it. But I feel like the answer that is, well, why not, is kind of insufficient. But I would understand not wanting to get into it. But yeah, it's just this thing that has never not happened to me. Without fail, people around me always ask me what angle I'm working by, in this case, learning how to draw. And I think I've probably said it on here before, but I don't have enough time to do 1% of the things I'd like to. There's so much I want to learn and experience and see and whatever else. But it feels like the whole world, and obviously that's hyperbolic, refuses to see things in any context but raw pragmatism. And it's just strange. Final example, because I'm sure there are only like 3 of you left listening by now. But when I reignited my passion for reading, which was extinguished when I was 13 or thereabouts, people, and I know I'm being so broad and vague saying people, but that's how it feels, they would ask, well, first of all, why? Why are you reading? But then the same follow-ups, like, oh, are you studying for something? Are you trying to learn how to do something else? Are you doing it because you want to start a book club or something? And it just got me thinking, like, imagine if someone asked you why you were going to watch that movie. Like, what's the purpose? Wouldn't that be so weird? Hey, why do you want to learn how to bake cookies? Are you going to open a bakery? It just seems so absurd. And maybe I'm overthinking it. That's definitely possible. But it also makes me feel for someone who maybe hasn't received the same questions for the past 10 years or more and feels the pull to pursue something just for the sake of it, which is kind of what I'm talking about, but gets dissuaded or embarrassed or second guesses their own motives, ultimately allowing that desire to float away. We're not robots, yet that's how we so often treat ourselves. If you want to learn a new skill just because it seems mildly interesting, that's enough. Learn it. If you want to be this or that version of yourself, you don't need anyone else's blessing or even understanding. I've been lucky, in a sense, to have received this same question over and over again. And while it's not always an exciting conversation or the one the inquirer expected to have, I answer as honestly as possible these days, and I try to include some of all of this that I've said here. Why am I learning to draw? Well, I've always wanted to be able to draw what I see. Why? Because in me is a romantic who stares out at the world in awe, and I'd like to be able to represent those feelings on paper. Why? I don't know, because I want to build a multi-billion-dollar corporation selling camp stools and white pants. Is that what you want to hear? Oh man. I'm on a soapbox today. I'm sure you can tell. Hopefully this was interesting to you, specifically you that I'm talking to, because there can't be more than one of you left Or maybe you is just me at this point, in which case that changes nothing, because hey, I wanted to talk about this today, and there's really no deeper reason than that. Geez. Okay, sorry. That was such a huge tangent. Also, before moving on, if any of that sounds like holier than thou or woe's me or any other phrase that would imply that I'm speaking down to the quote unquote people that I mentioned, that's not my intention at all. It's just a pattern I've noticed and nothing more. I know that they're just asking questions that seem most relevant and interesting to them. That said, if you've noticed a similar pattern or have thoughts about what I've said, let me know in the comments. Okay, let's talk about the drawing maybe. Yes, cool. So as you can see, a lot has happened. The beginning of the drawing was all about figuring out the perspective, and I've done so as intuitively as possible. I used those little dots to mark where I thought things should sit within the frame, like I said, and that seems to have worked out well for me. There are a lot of little problems here, notably the bottom left of the archway. It shouldn't be at such an angle, but overall I like the way this whole thing looks, and I wasn't sure before I started. I've passed by this spot countless times. In fact, the tower that I drew in video 42 is directly above me. And I've never been confident that I'll be able to pull this off. Candidly, a huge part of that was the texture, but I'm feeling pretty good about that right now, thanks to this pen that I won't stop talking about. I'm particularly happy with the direction I've added into the texture, which just follows the perspective. I haven't been very good at this ever, but because I spent so long testing the waters today, I had a pretty good feeling about what goes where and in what direction things are pointing. Again, save for that bottom left bit, which we can ignore starting now. So as I move up the wall, the angle of the stones or bricks or whatever these are called gets more and more dramatic. On the inside of the arch, the higher I go, the more counterclockwise the lines will rotate, and the opposite is true for the outside of the arch. Again, after the initial few minutes, I'm completely relying on intuition to guide me the rest of the way through, and it worked out surprisingly well. Hopefully I can expand that from this micro example to a more macro one in the future. As I round out the drawing, the final touches are probably my least favorite of the whole thing, specifically this wooden walkway at the top. You can't really see it in the reference, but it's a significant piece of this wall, and it wasn't until literally this moment that I decided to include it, and I think that really shows. Other than the angle, I don't give this the attention it would deserve if I really wanted it to look good. So I really wish that I would have just omitted it altogether. I think it was just that empty space on top that drove me to it, but I need to get better at leaving things alone, blank page notwithstanding. It doesn't ruin the drawing, but for me, it's an eyesore that I'd prefer not to have included. But what are you gonna do? So, like I said at the start, the perspective and the texture were the clear priorities here. I think it shows. I'm really glad that I gave myself the time to figure out where everything would sit and the angles and all that. And I think the texture, and more specifically, the thing I talked about the other day with more texture equaling shadow, looks decent here. This looks a lot more realistic than the pagoda I drew in South Korea, which, while obviously incredibly different, shares a few key qualities. If you haven't seen that video, you know what to do. Go check it out. So what do you think? Did I ramble too much today? Did it resonate with you? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.